Hello friends and welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to Set Up Right Dives, guys. I'm glad to have you here. If you're new to this channel, my name is Nadia Mar and I basically create content around talking about my faith, talking about very important issues that are going on in our political world or just in our world in general. So in today's video, guys, I want to dive deep into a discussion that Jordan Peterson had with the Alexander brothers, with Josh and Nick Alexander. So if you did not know, there's some crazy things going on in Canada because, we think things are bad here in America. Let me tell you that Canada has it worse. And Jordan Peterson invited these awesome, brave young men onto his podcast to talk about their experience because these are the men who are standing against totalitarianism that is happening in Canada. In fact, if you didn't know this, there's oftentimes we as Christians know a lot about persecution of Christians in China, but there's a lot of even Christian pastors being arrested for talking against, gender ideologies, talking about what is a man, what is a woman, There's a real persecution of Christians happening in Canada. So when I watched this whole podcast, and I would encourage you to watch this whole conversation that Jordan Peterson had with these young men, in today's video, guys, I wanted to talk about and just sort of share my thoughts on just a snippet of this conversation. Because, sometimes we as Christians, sometimes we're like, okay, I don't want to get political, and I agree, we stay away from politics. But however, whenever there's a real attack on Christian values, when there's a real attack on what is a woman, when there's an attack on what is a man, when there's an attack, what constitutes life, what is a baby, what is human life, when it comes to those kind of issues, I think it is important for us as Christians to stand on the right side of things, Because imagine if you were a Christian living in Nazi Germany, like where there's a real anti-Semitism and persecution of Jews and you just did nothing. Like, would that be the Christian thing for you to do nothing? So there is a time, and Paul talks about it, we try to be at peace with everyone, with all the governments and whatnot. However, whenever there's a real attack on our faith, when we're being silenced, when we cannot share the gospel, or sharing the gospel means that you're going to be in prison, then we do it anyway. Then we obey a higher law of God. They were talking about how they were organizing these protests and how Antifa was attacking them and how in the middle of this whole political chaos, and they were also sharing the gospel. I often think about this. We have these privileges of freedom, religious freedom, where we can still, even though it's been under attack, we still have freedom of speech in this country. And honestly, we still have that luxury. I don't know for how long, but sometimes I wonder, will there be a time when we cannot share our faith openly? Will there be a time when we cannot talk about Jesus, share the gospel, talk about what we believe in? And if talking about that will have us locked up or fined or whatever else, will we stop talking? It's easy to be a Christian when there's freedom, when there's nothing under attack, but I think it's a whole different Christianity. It's a whole different following of Jesus when you're being persecuted for your faith, for your beliefs that are actually truth.
This protest was quite aggressive right at the beginning, and you guys weren't. Not only were you not experiencing any real police support, you, as far as you're concerned, they were actually putting you at a disadvantage.
Absolutely.
Okay, strategically. Okay, so what happens to you?
So I was standing down, kind of behind their lines. I was in the smaller group that was separated, and they would allow, if my group wanted to go back and join my crowd, I could, but they wouldn't allow anyone else to join me. So I was just they were talking with some Antifa. I start sharing the gospel, as we always do, make a point. It's regardless of whether you're on my side of the ideological war or on their side, I still want to see everyone there saved. I don't want to see, I believe absolutely that all of us are sinners and we all need Jesus. And so I want to see all of them saved. So I was talking with them, sharing the gospel with them.
So when you say you're sharing the gospel under those circumstances, what exactly are you doing?
Telling them the truth.
Okay, how do you do that?
By explaining to them that me, them, you, all of us are sinners destined to an eternity in hell. Unless we turn to the cross of Jesus and receive his full and free gift of salvation, we will perish, we'll pay the wages of our sin. It's the only hope that there is for this world, is Jesus Christ and his sacrifice, his blood, his atoning blood. And so I was sharing that message with them, which really isn't a message of hate. That's a message of love. It's that you've wronged the creator of the universe. Like,
that's
he loves
never
you.
a good idea.
Never a good idea. But we've all done it. And he loves you enough to come down and die for you to pay for your sins. And offers you free salvation.
So
all you
you're
have to
trying
do
to
is
make that
it.
case in the midst of this melee.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what do you think?
Oh my gosh, guys. The fact that he so boldly, so openly shared the gospel without any sugarcoating, without any bypassing, just boldly proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ. We all are sinners, that we all have fallen short of God's glory, and that God of this whole universe, who is love, came down, incarnated, and died for our sins to save us, to restore us, to make us whole, to restore that relationship with him. This is the message of Christianity. That is the message of the cross, because there is justice, there is hell, there is evil. Because to say there is no hell is to minimize evil, to say, well, you know what? At the end of the day, no matter what you did, we all go to heaven. There's no such things. Even on this planet, if you're going to be a criminal, you're going to be locked up. There's going to be consequences. And imagine a God who is such great love, but there's no consequences for leading an evil life. So just because evil is real and sin is real, there has to be justice, there has to be hell, And how can God be fair? And God said, you know what? I'm going to come down. I'm going to be the sacrifice. I'm going to be atonement for sin. I'm going to be that. And I offer a gift, and people reject it. People reject it all the time, but that's the good news. That is how we are restored to truth, and that is how truth sets us free. This part of it's like 37 minutes into the podcast, and when he said that, my heart just blossomed. I was like, wow, this is what we as Christians are called to. So much deception in the Christian world, so much dilution of the gospel, just trying to hide the cross and try to, make it okay for everybody, without, this bold proclamation of what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to stand for truth, what it means to, stand for values, what it means to have convictions, In fact, this made me think, about my Christianity. I was like, you know what? All these prosperity gospel teachers, all these, Mike Todds and Tim Rosses and whatnot, these people who sugarcoat, the gospel to deceiving ears, whatnot, I think about these people, I'm like, would they have the conviction and the boldness to die for Jesus? To really go into the face of opposition and have that strong faith, that such conviction, such knowledge of who God is, and a relationship with God that will sustain you in the face of opposition. This is what Paul did in Ephesus. Paul went to Ephesus, which was like a center of commerce, a center of ideas, of exchanges, and he boldly proclaimed and called out the idols of that generation. And this is what these young men are doing. They're going into the centers and speaking against the idols of Canada, of society, of this gender ideology that are lies, they're deceiving, and they're paying the consequences, but they're standing boldly. And these are young people. And I'm just like, my heart just rejoices. Whenever I went to Rome, like this year, in the beginning of the year, and I was standing in the Colosseum, and we're talking about, Christians who gave their life for the gospel. And I constantly had in my heart, I'm like, God, do I have such deep convictions that even in the face of death, I would not deny you, that I would stand for truth till the end? And that's the kind of level of faith as Christians that we're called to come out of this comfortable American Christianity, this watered down, diluted Christianity that is just like dancing with the world. We're called for something bigger, for something much more of a bigger value. And let us not fall asleep and think, just because we have it here in America, that something like what's going on in Canada cannot come over here, because it absolutely can. Persecution can start anywhere. So I don't know, guys. I just was like, wow, what brave young men, how beautifully raised they were, and if you listen to the whole thing, their parents are Christians, they're believers, they're teachers, and they've been under attack for their beliefs and sharing the right things. And they raised men who will stand, who won't be bought by money, by fame, but they're trying to do the right thing. And how important it is to have in every generation people like this. In fact, this reminded me of a book that I've read a couple years ago. It's called Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas. But basically, this is a biography of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a young man. He went to a seminary in Berlin, in Germany, and then he was leading the anti-Nazi movement, standing against the Nazi Germany, the regime, anti-Semitism, and persecution of the Jews, and standing against, because a lot of Lutheran churches at that time had basically accepted Hitler's ideologies. But he stood, and he was an organizer and a leader of the confessing churches. So he was standing boldly against the lie and the demonic ideologies that were prevalent in his generation. And I read this book and I thought, wow, God. And he died. He paid a price with his life for his beliefs. And this is what it means to follow Jesus. You should ask yourself as a Christian, how deep are my convictions? And I don't know, guys, I just wanted to share this because I was like, whoa. All right, guys, so let's hear some more.
What do you think is the relationship between, let's say, the positive relationship you have with your father and the respect for him that you have, perhaps with your mother too, your religious belief and your political action, as far as you're concerned? How are those things tied together?
Well, I think my political action are based on my moral compass. My moral compass is based on my biblical beliefs, the Bible, and the outline set there for us.
Okay. So let's go to when you get attacked. What happens?
So I'm talking with them, and one of the guys on the front of their line dives out and tries to tackle me. So I kind of push him off me.
He's masked?
Masked. They're always masked. The physical ones are always masked. Usually they all are. But if they're physical, they're guaranteed to be masked.
I see. So do you suppose that the people who are masking up like that, like they're planning physical violence and that's why they're wearing the mask? Or do you suppose it's the fact that they're masked disinhibits them when they're at the rally?
That, and also because I don't think they're proud of what they're standing for. I can go there without a mask on because I'm proud of what I'm standing on.
I think the same thing. It's like if you have to show up to your protest in a mask,
hiding your identity.
You're a narcissistic coward, right? And a dangerous one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the police should be using that as a marker for true psychopathy, right? That's absolutely inexcusable. So, okay, so this guy comes after you?
Yeah, so he dives into the crowd, just a little guy, tries to tackle me. And so I'm trying to grapple with him, trying to get him off me. I have one hand up in the air to show this cop's I'm not assaulting him, I'm being attacked here. So
you're protecting yourself with one hand?
Yeah, well, first as soon as he tackled me, I went two hands on him, put him down, trying to get him off me. I have one hand up in the air, trying to keep him away with one hand. And while I'm dealing with this, another assailant literally dives over their line with whether it was a bladed gloves. A lot of them were wearing bladed gloves, or a knife, or whatever it was.
Tell me exactly what a bladed glove is.
It's a glove with blade on the fingers, a blades coming up the hands here, and a blade on the thumb.
And are those visible from a distance?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the cops don't do anything about that? Because I don't imagine those are legal weapons.
I haven't looked into it. I presume they're not legal, but I haven't looked into it. But no, the cops don't do anything about that. And this isn't a new thing. We've had Antifa bring knives to our events for a long time.
Yeah.
So anyways, so this guy dives across, and I kind of, in my peripheral vision, I see him coming. So I back my head out of most of the hit, and he just grazes across my eye. You can probably see the scar there. It's 5 or 6 stitches. I can't remember what it was, but.
And how close is that to your eye?
I don't know, maybe an inch. And
that's pushing it.
It's pushing it, yeah. Especially
I'd say so.
Yeah.
So now you're cut.
Yeah. So I'm cut. I kind of stand up. I watch. I can't see a lot. I have a lot of blood in my vision. It's kind of blurry, but what I believe the cops picked up the guy who attacked me and put him back in his crowd and kind of closed in all around us everywhere.
They picked him up and put him back in the crowd.
Yep.
They didn't arrest him.
Didn't arrest him. And so I see the cops, everyone's kind of closing in around me. It's hard to see, and the cops start ordering me to leave. I'm like, no, I was just attacked with a blade. I'm going to stand there.
And how did they do that exactly? A particular officer came up to you? Like, how did they order you to leave?
Yeah, well, they started out, do you want medical attention? I said, no, I'm all right. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Perfectly polite. And another officer walks up. If you don't leave, I'm going to arrest you. So I said, I have every right to be here. I'm going to continue standing here and talking. I'm on a public sidewalk. Every right to be there. And so I continued talking, continued sharing the gospel to members of the opposing side. And there's this one girl on the other side that I was talking to, and it was like she almost snapped. I saw it in her eyes. It was like what I was saying was registering with her. I don't know if it was the fact that I just got attacked, I'm covered in blood, and I'm still trying.
Well, that would add a little more drama.
It would add a little more drama to it, yeah. And so it seemed to hit home. So I just continued talking to her, and there's a veteran beside me. We call him Wild Bill. He's a combat veteran. He's airborne. And the cops tell him to leave, and he says he's not leaving my side. And at this point, he's bleeding too. So what they did is they had an umbrella, and they broke the umbrella off it. It had a spear point like that at the end, not an actual spear point, but very pointy umbrella. And they basically fabricated into a spear, and they were trying to stab us with that. And they caught him in the hand. His hand was all bloody from it. And so the cops tell him, if you don't leave, you're going to be arrested. And he says, I'm not leaving his side.
Don't imagine they were scaring him that much.
No, I think he's seen a lot worse than Antifa and the Toronto police. But they arrested him, placed him under arrest, and then 30 seconds later placed me under arrest. And
did they tell you what the charge was?
Well, that's a funny thing. So at the time, they told me it was obstruction.
Obstruction of what?
That's a general charge, obstruction of justice. How exactly, I don't know. And then when they went to book me into the cell, to the holding cell, they told me it was breach of the peace, and they told the crowd that it was for assault. So,
For assault.
Yeah, so put that together.
Okay, so they trot you off to jail, and
Right.
so you're wondering what's going on.
So this reminds me of Daniel and his friends. When you make the decision that you're not going to worship the Baals of your generation, where you're not going to choose to worship idols of your society, where you're going to worship Jesus no matter what, and you're going to stand and you're going to proclaim the truth in a wicked and deceitful generation. I often think about people who say, like, oh, in the Christian world, it's about miracles and wonders and blah, blah, blah. But, it's actually standing for truth, facing opposition with courage and understanding that God will protect you, that God will see you through. And even if, this is what, Daniel's friends said, even if we perish, we will not serve your God. We will not bow to your God. And what we see is that God comes through. God comes through and steps up and protects them in the midst of the violence and whatnot. Sometimes God saves, like he saved Daniel's friends, and sometimes God allows death to come, like in Stephen's case when he was stoned to death. But then Paul saw that, and then Paul was forever changed and completed the mission. You know what I'm saying? This is what it means to have Christian courage, to be bold, to be strong, to be courageous. Not just like this whole thing, this Christianity where people want to talk about feel good stuff and have shows and church services that literally look like club events and concerts. This is what it means to follow Jesus. And I'm just so proud. I just want to buy that Save Canada hat right now just to support them. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully as a Christian made you think about your faith in a deeper sense. But if you don't know Jesus, I invite you to know the Lord, because he is the Lord of truth. He wants to have a relationship with you, to understand what you were made for, the fact that you're not a random person on this planet, the fact that you have a purpose and a call, and that is to be in a covenantal relationship with Jesus, who came down on this planet to save you from death. He overcame death. There is no sufficient sacrifice. You cannot be so good that you don't need Jesus, and you cannot be so bad that you cannot have Jesus. Jesus came for the good and the bad, to equalize, and the way he judges us is not based on our performance, it's based on our reception of salvation, us hearing the good news and deciding what we're going to do with it. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Consider commenting, liking this video, but most importantly, subscribing to this channel, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.